Welcome. I'm Sebastian Mahfood, and you're listening to WCAT Radio, the on-air wing of En Route Books and Media, bringing you the dulcet sounds of Catholic wisdom.
Welcome back to Sunday School. This is your host, Pat Flynn, and we're going to talk about political correctness. But first, I have to say this is a special travel episode. I am in the state of Michigan, which on a map looks like a mitten. Not a glove, because a glove has a differentiation of digits. Michigan does not. It's got the thumb, and then it's got the glob. Therefore it's a mitten. I'm on my way to Wisconsin. We stopped off to visit some friends, and in Wisconsin I will have a mixture of both business and pleasure, and then we will return home to Pennsylvania. So I will try to keep up as best as I can with just everything, but the podcasts in particular. And the reason I wanted to talk about political correctness is not to go on some long, angry, quivering rant against it, but to offer some perspective, perhaps a nuanced perspective on a hotly debated topic, and how we should approach it with regards to religion and faith. So when it comes to the idea of political correctness, I am generally against it. And the reason is it becomes sort of a political tool. It becomes a club that certain people like to use to just beat other people over the head with, rather than engage in rational debate or civilized argument. And I don't think we need to give too many examples of this. It's pretty obvious that this has gotten out of control. So there's two sides here, and I was in an ethics class the other day, and this got brought up, and everybody started getting really heated. So for once, I actually tried to moderate the discussion. I usually really enjoy a heated discussion and debate, but I didn't think it was being very productive. So I entered in and said, I think we can recognize that there's truth on both sides. One is that the idea of political correctness very much has become a weapon for people who are just trying to wield political power, who are just trying to shut down the conversation. That is true. But on the other side, there is very much something to be said about being respectful to people, to not, trying to speak in a way that would intentionally harm somebody, that is intentionally offensive. And the point that I tried to make is this. The problem with political correctness, and the reason I don't concern myself with it too much, is because I'm too concerned with truth. But I'm not saying that like I am the all-knowing bearer of truth. I'm saying my concern is getting at truth, and to the extent that we can't have, it's impossible to get at, because if the goal is just to never offend anybody, then this immediately kills virtually every productive conversation. And the example I gave in class is there's many, but in particular, any time that we are in disagreement with one another and we're trying to figure something out, we risk, intentionally or not, offending one another. It's just an inherent part of the process, and it can be something over very, very trivial. Somebody could be doing a math problem wrong. They could think 2 + 2 = 5. Well, I have to make an argument against this person, or this person would have to make an argument against me. We could assume that I got the problem wrong, of that I somehow made a mistake in my arithmetic. And there's always a chance that I might be offended by that. Whenever we hold a certain position, we always put a little bit of ourselves into it. There's a certain There's a certain attachment to the ego, a certain identification to all of our beliefs, our opinions, our positions. So to the extent that we're trying to get things right, that we're trying to figure things out, that we're trying to get closer to the truth, we have to risk offending people. And we have to also risk being offended ourselves. And this means that that debates, that arguments, that conversations are needed, because these are ways to advance in understanding. And there's no way to advance in understanding without bearing the risk of offense. So that was the first point I made, and that was a strong point against political correctness, that tends to put feelings over facts, that tends to try to silence or shut down conversation. I think that is all very dangerous, and this is why I lean more against the idea of political correctness than for it. But then I can completely turn around and say, just because we risk, we try to, and this is where I think something like Christianity is like it's offensive to both sides sometimes. It cuts both ways. As a Christian, you should be uttermost committed to the truth and proclaiming the truth. And guess what? Christianity is inherently offensive. It is an offensive religion. Why? Because it claims to be true. It is not a pluralistic religion. A pluralistic religion would be something that says that, like, hey, all religions are true, or all religions are pointing toward the same thing. And we've done an episode arguing against that before. So if you want to hear my criticisms of religious pluralism, please just refer to the previous episodes on that. But guess what? Religious pluralism is people will act like it's pretty politically correct, right? So like, oh, well, it's just, that way you don't offend anybody because you say all religions are true. Guess what? That is offensive to their religion is true. You are offending that person. So just by trying to be politically correct, you're actually not. You think you're being politically correct, but you're being offensive by diluting somebody else's position, and think that just by saying that all religions are true, or that all truth is relative, is somehow not offensive. No, it's definitely offensive to some degree, because you are challenging another position that somebody might hold very strongly to. Now, I'm not offended by the claim, because I can argue against religious pluralism, but don't think that that just trying to wash over truth with this pseudo-philosophical bilge water of relativism, that somehow you're being politically correct. I don't buy it for a second. Again, even the very nature of political correctness is offensive to some people. It's where it isn't impractical. It actually seems to be practical. It actually seems to become impossible. So for no other reasons, political correctness should be rejected, just because it's nothing that could really ever fully be attained, aside from some type of mass brainwashing or eugenics program or something like that. So sorry, I did end up going off on a little rant right there. But again, as a Christian, we care about virtue, we care about character. So the goal in pursuing the truth and sharing truth, when you start to make claims about the religion, like, hey, here's why I think that this religion is true, and then you give arguments, right? Well, we should never do that. And I'm speaking for Christians here. If you're not a Christian, then hopefully nobody ever presents it. And this is something we hear a lot. And this is something that I myself, before converting to Christianity, I always thought, oh man, those Christians can be really arrogant sometimes. It's saying that they've got the truth and this and that. And you know what? I was offended, but what I didn't realize is I was offended. But what I didn't realize is I was offensive to them by saying that they didn't have it. So they saw me as the arrogant one. Again, it works both ways. But the point I'm trying to make is, when it comes to pursuing truth, when it comes to argument, debate, we always want to present our position with as much charity, as much grace as possible. And this is something I have to remind myself of constantly, because I am a debater. I love to debate. I love to argue. I always have. But I have to remember, it's not about being right. Okay, it's about winning somebody's heart. So yes, you could go out and you could give you could give that long, quivering, angry rant and just rail against any position that you're against, and you might even have really good arguments. And this is beyond religion or faith at this point. This could apply to anything, politics, exercise. You could have great arguments, but if you present them so maliciously and with such anger, even it doesn't matter. You're very likely just going to turn people off. So when it comes to things like sharing your faith, of evangelization. Remember, there's two sides to it. There is one, the arguments themselves. Do you have good arguments? If not, then definitely start studying. We've covered a number of them through this series already. We'll cover a number before, and have those ready. Be ready to give a reason for the hope that is inside of you, as St. Paul taught us. And you can probably hear my children yelling around outside at this point. But beyond that also is the manner. So there's the matter in which you share something, but there's also the manner and how you share it, how you engage with people. Are you listening? Are you being compassionate? And I found that this is often more effective. Sometimes we're very eager to prove our point in anything. We just want to go out there and bombard people. But you can be much more effective if you're just a little bit patient. If you just ask people what they think, how they feel, and this then opens people up. It makes them receptive to hearing what you have to say, because it feels like there's an actual dialogue or conversation, and it's not just a debate. Formal debates are great on a stage, but I think when it comes to trying to really share a position with somebody, we should seek to actually avoid debate, because then it does become a very defensive thing, and we should seek rather to dialogue and converse with people. So this is where I'm by no means pro being politically correct, but I am very much pro being polite, having good manners, saying things in good taste, and genuinely caring for people who don't agree with you. Because again, it's not about just making people seem like they're wrong. It's not about just you proving yourself right. Improve the status of humanity by coming, even if we're just trying to improve the civility of humanity, which is something that desperately needs to be improved at this point, at least as I see it. People are becoming increasingly hostile toward each other who have opposing viewpoints. We have to lead from the front. We have to be the people who are engaging charitably with people of differing worldviews, of differing opinions, of a different interpretation of things. Again, this is not just limited to religion or faith. This is true for anything. Just go down the line. Obviously, politics is a big one, and where people tend to be the least civil. But you see it everywhere: fitness, nutrition, so on and so forth. How can we dialogue? How can we converse? How can we open up rather than just kind of charge in with as much force as possible? So, the biggest threat to political correctness is it is an enemy of truth in many regards. Beyond that, it is again a club that people are constantly trying to wield to gain some type of political ground. And I'm not saying that everybody who subscribes to political correctness is doing this. No, but I think that there are some people with not so great intentions who realize that mere politeness, which I think is a great thing, is actually an effective political weapon, and are quite devious with it. So I would simply leave it at that. I think that the fight against political correctness is one worth taking up, but it's also one that we can do with charity and politeness and so on. Now, how does all that tie into Christianity in particular? Well, again, what I don't like to see, and this is something that I've had to get over and deal with myself, is that because the encroachment of political correctness into culture, it seems like Christians are becoming less eager or compelled to share their faith, to evangelize, and because they're afraid of offending people. And this is exactly what I've just talked about. If again, what is most important in life? Is it just not offending people? Because that is never going to happen. That's just never going to happen. To the extent that people disagree on anything, there is always the risk of offense. You will be offended. Some of the best things that have ever happened in my life came about simply because I was offended and got over it. Coaches something wrong, or that I held a viewpoint that was wrong. And in fact, this is in large part what brought me to Christianity. People critiqued my positions on things. They argued against me. And whenever that happens, and whenever you feel like maybe you just you were actually wrong, it's kind of a little bit offensive. It can hurt a little bit because, again, we always put just a little bit of ourselves into the positions we hold. And when somebody comes and they critique those positions, when they critique your philosophy, when they critique your approach, when they critique anything about you, whether it's almost impossible to not be offended on some level. But that's a skill. It's a skill to, even if you're never not offended, it's certainly a skill to learn how to react to that in a positive and productive way. So one little tip that I developed, and this was something that I learned in high school because I knew I had a tendency to. And this was something that I learned in high school because I knew I had a tendency to just react. Like whenever somebody critiqued me or criticized me, I just reacted. I didn't think about it. I didn't always consider it. So I developed this rule that whenever I got a criticism or critique, I would wait one day until I responded. Now, whether that was in person or whether it was through email, I would just shut my mouth for one day. And that was enough for me to cool off, to stop being so offended in some cases, and to really approach the critique from a position of level-headedness. Maybe not complete equanimity, but a certain objectivity that certainly isn't there initially. And this was an incredibly useful tool to me because I was not only able to then go and accept critiques a lot more often, but then go back to the person who offered those critiques and genuinely thank them for taking the time and seeing that they critiqued because they care. So I would offer that to anybody. It was something that was helpful to me because, again, I struggled with it. It just goes back to the point that I'm trying to make is in order for anybody to advance in understanding, to come to truth, it's usually a long process of removing mistakes, of sweeping away the errors. And a lot of times it's going to be other people who expose you to your own mistakes, and you're not going to like it. Nobody likes it. Nobody likes it when your form's getting critiqued or your diet's getting critiqued or you're criticized for your behavior or your worldview is challenged on anybody. Nobody likes that, okay? It just rebels against our inherently egotistical natures. So this is why, again, something like political correctness is not inherently a good thing. Politeness, absolutely, we want to be polite. And, it's funny because you watch debates in the old days, like, go way back, even political debates. They used to just be so much more civil. Yet political correctness was not really so much a thing back then. It really started to rise in the 90s, and now it's coming to a new level today. So it's kind of funny to see that there's this huge rise in this thing of political correctness, yet my goodness, have I don't want to say people have never been less civil. There's certainly been civilizations that were far less civil than we. It doesn't seem like it's really helping at all, does it? If anything, it seems to be making some instances worse. That's just a minor observation. I have no real strong empirical data to support that, but it seems like it's the case anyways. So this was, that's probably about all I have today. When it comes to this theme, political correctness, it seems like people often kind of fall, as many do, on either one side or the other, very, very strongly. And again, I am against it generally for the reasons I've outlined. But I think we mustn't lose sight of what is right about it, which is treating people who hold opposing viewpoints with respect, with charity, with kindness and love, and realizing that just because somebody has a differing point of view, they are not the enemy in any way. What we do is form a relationship with people, so that way we can grow together. We can come to understand things, learn from one another where possible, correct one another where necessary. And reform that bond, reform the necessary civility. Because here's the deal: once argument is gone, once conversation is gone, you've got nothing left but violence, and that's what I really worry about, right? Like once the sides stop. Like right now, they're just mostly shouting past each other, but at some point, the shouting will even just become utterly useless if it's not there already. And then all the conversation stops. And then what do you have? Well, I hardly even want to think about it. So let us, again, anybody listening here, be the example here. Let's lead with charity. Let's be willing to engage. Go out there, proclaim what you believe. Give good reasons. Give good arguments. Give good reasons. Give good arguments. But do so in a way that is going to open a conversation, open a dialogue, make people curious, interested, and then and so that way you're sharing with people. You're not debating with people so much. So we'll leave it at that. I should probably get ready for dinner. The people who are hosting us are probably like, where did Pat go? Well, he slinked off to the attic to record a podcast. I'm going to try my very bestest to get a few more episodes up this week. So thanks for tuning in for this short Sunday school special. I enjoy these very much. I have a lot lined up for this series, by the way. I spent time outlining a curriculum of a couple different parts. One is, philosophy and apologetics to support many different facets of the Christian faith and religion. But then also the practical side. I want to spend a lot more time there. What are some, how do we how should we really embrace and practice spirituality? I want to get into that a little bit more, and I have a lot of interviews and stuff lined up. Anyway, I'm dragging this on. This is unnecessary, folks. I love you. Thank you for listening. If you found this episode helpful, please do pass it along. I think it's important, and I hope that you found it important too. And as always, if you enjoy these conversations, if you get something out of it, then please do us a favor here at the Pat Flynn Show. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. Leave a review. Enjoy your Sunday, or whenever you're listening to this. Have a wonderful day, and leave you this. See if you can strike up a conversation with somebody, even somebody who you don't think holds the same position with you, and see if you can just start a charitable dialogue with that person. I'll leave you with that one today, and you don't have to even bring up anything that you disagree about. Just open the line of conversation with somebody this person definitely does not agree on a lot of the things that I would think are true. And just see where that goes, because some amazing things could happen. They've certainly happened in my life by doing that. You can open a conversation with somebody that, maybe you disagree on 95 to 99% of all the things in the world. Right? But you open up that line of conversation on that one thing that you do agree on, and you start to build the relationship there, and then you see what comes out of it. Leave you with that. You might be surprised. Thanks. Talk soon.
We hope you enjoyed the program and will join us back for another show on WCAT Radio. This is Sebastian Mahfood. Good day.